Beautiful, beautiful and said. Because if you think about Kobe, he was extremely competitive. But unfortunately, when he passed, as you mentioned before, everybody could say that competitive nature that he had, whether it was enemy or friend, it inspired them to be greater. And so that's so for the listener watching this right now, and you're saying, man, I feel like it's competitive right now, whatever sphere of the industry you're working in, if it's in tech or not, keep going. Don't give up. This episode is for you. Continue through the competition. Now I'm going to pivot over to collaboration because the same person that's listening says, hey, I want to collaborate with you, Bobby. I'm a prospect. How can you talk about collaboration between not only the prospect and the recruiter, how that should look, but also between the recruiter and the recruiter's team, whether it's a hiring manager, other people that are involved in that process. Can you talk a little bit about the collaboration process there?
Yeah, absolutely. Say, what I've learned in my years, it's a team effort in order to get a great hire. You really don't do it by yourself, right? So everybody plays a role, right? And everybody's role is important. And so for me, I source talent, I vet the talent on the front end. But in order to help my team out, I have to at least be able to talk about tech at a fundamental level. I can't go and do cybersecurity. I can't go and do back-end code, but I have to know at a surface level what that is. So it's incumbent upon me, and it's in the best interest of my team, that I do that role well, right? Because I'm going to be dependent on the hiring manager and the interview team to really go dive deep into those technical nuances, because I can't do that, right? So that's where the collaboration is. We play to each other's strengths. I do this, you do this well, right? I bring a level of expertise and experience that could help benefit you. You bring a level of experience, skill, and expertise that'll benefit me. And it goes down the road. So collaboration in the hiring process is key, right? So our HR business partners, he or she knows HR policy, compensation law, HR law. He or she may be more but on the balances of probability is probably more knowledgeable about that than anybody else in the room. We have insight, but that's their bread and butter, right? So when you collaborate, you play to each other's strengths, so you all have the same outcome. So you identify, okay, we all want to have a great hire within our organization, right? So how do we use each other's strengths and the skills that we've honed over years to do that? So that's how it should work with a hiring team, or even with other recruiters, right? There's recruiters I'm collaborating with right now, right? We all are great. We all are good. We all are skilled, but we bring different perspectives. So that brings an inclusive environment. When people talk about inclusion, they talk about gender, race, ethnicity, etc. And all those things are key and they're important, right? But different perspectives as well is what inclusion is about as well. So collaboration is definitely an inclusive experience, right? So somebody may have some insight on something that I may not. So, hey, Bobby, you should think about this when you post this, or you should think about this when you're reaching out to a candidate. Hey, that's a good idea. And it's just it's a value exchange. That's what networking is. Networking is a value exchange. Collaboration is a value exchange, right? And even with a prospect.
That's good. No, you got, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, you're good.
Just click there. Keep going. I'm sorry.
You're all good, man. But even with a prospect, even with a candidate, really, the way I see it, really, I think, I wouldn't necessarily say with a candidate or a prospect, it can be collaborative, but I need, as a recruiter, as a senior tech recruiter, I need to really be at service and be an advocate to the prospect. I'm gonna be honest with you. I think that's how I see that relationship. It can be collaborative because a lot of times if I'm building a relationship with a prospect or a candidate, they'll give me key insights on what's going on in the job market. A lot of times my knowledge and things I find out that's what's going on in the job market, my candidates tell me. My candidates tell me what's going on in the streets, for lack of a better word. They keep my ear to the ground. Hey man, this new technology, man, this is coming up. Hey man, a lot of people trying to get this skill so they can go interview him. I was like, oh, really? So I think that's where the collaboration comes from. But me really as a tech recruiter, the way I view a prospect or a candidate is that I'm really at service to them. I'm their advocate. I'm not a gatekeeper, I'm a door. So I think the collaboration really takes for all of us really coming in and making sure that candidate is having a great candidate experience.
Yeah.
And I'm the one that's going to be advocating for that candidate as they go through the process to make sure they have everything they need.
You got me writing stuff here. I gotta post this one because this was a bar. Collaboration is a value exchange. I don't think people oftentimes think about it that way, but it is. Like when you're coming to the table with your experiences, with your, whether it's work experience, life experience, you're bringing value to the table. And then when a recruiter comes, they have this opportunity. They're bringing an opportunity to you. There's an exchange that is happening. And so if you're wondering, maybe reason why I'm not getting it is because you're not providing enough value in the conversation. You're not providing enough value because we all have value, right? We all have things to bring to the table. We may not be bringing all of the best of ourselves to that conversation. And that's what I want to talk about next. There are people that here that are like, man, I went on interview after interview. I might get to the first, second, or third round of interviews, and then the doors slammed in my face. Can you talk about the landmines that potential prospects could avoid that would disqualify them from that position that they're looking to get?
Yeah, it's another great question. I was actually doing a resume breakdown session with a couple people today, and we were just talking about this. Like, what are some of the things I've seen since I've done this work for years? And man, there's a lot. I think the first thing I would say, and this is, a lot of people agree with me with this and some people don't. I think, and I actually put a LinkedIn post out about this some time ago, but anything from a technical skill standpoint, we're talking about technical skills, anything from a technical skills standpoint that you put on your resume is fair game for questioning and can and will be assessed. So when we're talking about technical skill, I see a lot of people, they're not very completely honest about the technical skills they have. This doesn't apply to everybody, but I've seen people that if they just did it a little bit, then they'll put it on there. They'll put that they got Python, right? Or if they like have some knowledge, they just know about it, they'll put it down as a skill. But when you get in an interview with a technical recruiter, because in the tech space, they take technical skills very seriously. Like if you're big tech, small startups, you're going to be assessed on your skills. Be ready to talk about that. And I see a lot of people, they get advice where the people just tell them to put these skills on your resume so you can get seen by the recruiter. But I think that's problematic for me, because if you have here, okay, you Python. Okay, great. Can you speak to that? They can't speak to it. Is Python a front end code or back end? It's back end. Right? They don't know that. You know what I mean? So it's like really only put things in the skills section that you're truly skilled at. A skill is something that anytime, anywhere, day or night, they put it in front of you and you can do it with minimum to zero supervision. And you can do it at least at a moderate level. That's a skill, right? So that's something that I see a lot of people do, right? You have all the buzzwords, but when they get on the phone with a technical recruiter, they get on the phone with the hiring manager, they can't speak to it. So I always challenge people to really think about your skills section on your resume and just gut check yourself. Am I truly skilled at this? If you send me an assessment test right now, right? I'm on pen testing using Kali Linux. Can I do it? And can I do it? If I got to have somebody looking over my shoulder, somebody guiding me, and I can't do it by myself at a moderate level, you might want to go back to the drawing board with putting that on your resume as a skill. And I think that's a big mistake people make, right? Because hiring managers will get excited. Recruiters like me get excited. Oh man, they know AWS Cloud. Oh man, they know data structures and algorithms. But they bomb when they get to the interview. So I want to set people up for success. Right. So I want you to do well in these. So that's one thing I see. The second thing I see is when they get into interviews and they're not able to tell a story about their career and what they've done. Right. So if you've done something for 3 years, 7 years, 11 years, you should be able to talk about that. I've seen too many times where, some candidates, they don't know their resume and they can't really speak to projects they've done without picking it up and looking at it, it shows that you don't really know about it or you're not passionate about it. So I always say, be ready to talk about things that you put in your experience section. If you had on here that you ran a project and you did a project and it saved this time and this money, they're going to want to know how you did it. So be ready to talk about it. Typically, this happens in the STAR method. They use a STAR, and I'm pretty sure you may have heard of this. They use the STAR method, right? So situation and all of that, situation, task, action, result. I'll even add an extra R and say reflection.
Yeah, now there's 2 R's.
Yeah. And you got to be able to really tell the story about it. So I think that's one common thing that I noticed that people do. And I think those are really the 2 key things. There's other things, but those are really the key 2. Like not putting things on your resume just to get looks, just to get views, but also not being prepared to answer questions at a conversational level on things you put on your resume.